Right now, Syrskyi has announced a breakthrough. The Russian front is collapsing and the Ukrainian armed forces are advancing. Syrskyi made a statement that the Kremlin feared most of all. A huge rift has formed in the Lukashenko-Putin alliance. Batska is turning Belarus around. Lukashenko has secretly reached an agreement with Beijing. The bunker man is losing his last ally. Shock. Putin is preparing a new war. Europe is urgently mobilizing troops and the Kremlin is taking a dangerous step. NATO is getting ready and Putin is sharply raising the stakes at the alliance's borders. A new era of air defense. Zelensky has prepared a painful surprise for the Kremlin. Ukraine is receiving next-generation weapons. The West has gone all in. Urgent. Putin wants to take Kyiv again. Syrskyi has revealed the Kremlin's plan. Putin is preparing a new assault. Lukashenko is being dragged into the war again. Catastrophe in the Russian army. Soldiers don't survive even a few minutes. The contract has turned into a death sentence. The Russian army is falling apart. Russians are refusing en masse to go to the front. All this and more in our program Hotspot. Right now, Syrskyi has announced a breakthrough. The armed forces of Ukraine have begun to change the course of the war. The front is cracking. The commander-in-chief has revealed a plan that could finally collapse Russia's defenses. The armed forces of Ukraine are confidently liberating territories. Syrskyi has named the key conditions for victory. The turning point is near. Watch all the details right now.
Ukrainian long-range weapons are not just words like Putin's little nutcracker. These are real actions.
A ton and 100. A ton and 100 of explosives. That's very powerful. A lot. That's very serious.
The Flamingo now regularly reaches deep into Russia, strikes military targets, and leaves behind destroyed workshops of defense enterprises. What the
hell is burning up ahead? It's just life. That's the kind of smoke it is. What could it be?
Such strikes are a cold shower not only for the Russian authorities, but also for many Russians who for years believed the propaganda about their country's invulnerability and might.
We are working, we are developing, we are not going to give up, and we have the potential to produce weapons. No worse than Russia.
When factories are burning and after attacks on oil refineries there are fuel shortages, the television image starts to diverge from reality.
I'm standing in line. Yep. I want to fill up. This is already my second attempt.
With each passing day, as I understand it, things will get worse and worse.
Ukraine is breaking all records for the number of strikes on the Russian rear. In June alone, 11 oil refineries and 8 defense industry enterprises in Russia were attacked.
Our wars. That's how it is. There you go. In
recent times, Ukrainian drones have been flying into Moscow and the Moscow region more and more often. The mayor of the capital of the terrorist country, Syrskyi Sobyanin, announces that something was shot down, but in the area the power goes out and everything is covered in smoke. Our defenders regularly disable the radars of airspace control systems. These systems control the skies in the direction of Moscow. Thanks to this, a gap opens up in the dense air defense system of the occupiers right into the capital of Russia. And strikes on targets in St. Petersburg, services, and Moscow become easy prey.
The forces and resources for the operation were at a record low. One crew, 6 people, and for several months they couldn't do anything to us. They tried to cover their radars with electronic warfare systems, tried to strike our positions with offensive weapons, tried to replace radars after they were destroyed, but nothing worked for them.
The commander-in-chief of the armed forces of Ukraine, Oleksandr Syrskyi, summing up the results of the fighting, stated that since the beginning of the year, Ukrainian forces have liberated more than 670 square kilometers of territory.
We are successfully containing and suppressing their advance across all primary strategic directions of their offensive, effectively disrupting their tactical maneuvers, and we are launching decisive counterstrikes specifically in those areas where we observe that their defensive lines show signs of vulnerability or significant weakness. Of course, we are also conducting offensive operations, and thanks to this kind of combined active defense, we are achieving success. Indeed, in May, our gains, the liberation of territory, exceeded by 100 square kilometers the territory we lost.
At this current moment, the Ukrainian army has transitioned toward more active operations in specific and strategic sectors of the front.
With deep strike capabilities, we are destroying the enemy's economy, eliminating their oil refineries and fuel storage sites. This deprives them of resources and the ability to produce weapons, ammunition, military equipment, or dual-use products. Middle strike. It paralyzes the enemy's logistics and operational rear, destroys the supplies stored in the operational rear, and the enemy is forced to move them deeper into their territory. With our strikes, we reduce the enemy's ability to use and deliver weapons.
But this does not mean that Putin is ready to back down. The Kremlin continues to churn out weapons. The country is essentially operating on a war footing. But Ukraine's long-range strikes have seriously disrupted Putin's plans, and the Russian leadership is hiding the real problems at the front from the bunker dictator. The loss of territories, the worsening situation in Crimea, and the destruction of military enterprises. Meanwhile, the task of the Ukrainian armed forces remains unchanged: to destroy enemy forces, liberate Ukrainian territories, and create conditions for Russia in which it will have to choose between negotiations and further escalation. Escalation of the war.
Urgently, Putin is no longer the main player. Lukashenko has made an unexpected choice. Batska has secretly reached an agreement with China. The Kremlin is furious. What does China expect from Belarus regarding Putin's aggression against Ukraine? The answers are in our report.
Let's welcome with a round of applause His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Belarus, Alexander Grigorievich Lukashenko.
His Excellency is fleeing from Moscow. Lukashenko's last visit to Putin made it absolutely clear. Batska is choosing a new patron for himself, and it will be Xi. China, in turn, has for the first time so openly declared its support for Lukashenko. The Celestial Empire handed his child, Kolya, a diploma of higher education.
I never expected that there would be a biotechnologist in my family. Often, not understanding, I would say maybe it's not necessary. After all, you are the president's son, but today I am happy.
Yes, and China is taking Batska himself under its wing. Xi Jinping has openly stated that he will not let Belarus be wronged and will protect it from an aggressor.
Beijing and Minsk must continue to develop bilateral relations at a high level. This should contribute to practical results for the citizens of both countries. China supports Belarus in defending its national sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity, as well as in choosing its own path of development. And we will continue to support the development of Belarus to the best of our abilities.
Pro-Russian media were quick to announce that, of course, this is about Ukraine and Zelensky's ultimatum to destroy the relay stations in Belarus. But there is one catch. Kyiv has never encroached on the territorial integrity that Beijing is ready to defend.
China said, we support Belarusian integrity. Everything they have is Belarusian. Is this because Zelensky decided to take away a couple of relay stations? Or is it because Putin said at Balta, you know what, if you disconnect a couple more relay stations, I'll take Belarus from you. Maybe through the government. Or maybe there just isn't any border, and there never will be again. And most likely, it's the latter rather than the former.
At the same time, it's worth listening to Lukashenko himself. At the meeting with Xi, he was basically begging the head of the Communist Party for protection and said he was ready to report as soon as the leadership demanded a report.
We constantly exchange views with you on the international agenda and the situation in the region. I keep you informed about this all the time. I think we need to continue these contacts further.
According to some experts, the situation could reach the point where Beijing might even deploy its troops in Belarus, guaranteeing the protection of its own interests, and at the same time, Lukashenko's.
His nation serves as an exceptionally vital logistics and transportation gateway for various Chinese products, because as of today, of the goods that travel by land corridor through Russian territory to Europe, 90% of these goods pass through Belarus. Also, for example, Lukashenko handed over the industrial park to China, to Chinese companies, who also use it as a hub to send their products to the territory of the European Union.
At the same time, Russia's aggressiveness, both towards Belarus and towards NATO, and of course Ukraine, is no longer beneficial to China. The recent statement that Moscow urgently needs to start negotiations is further confirmation of this.
Here the questions are, is China ready to facilitate the parties sitting down at the negotiating table and most importantly, to end the conflict? Because as we know, Russia has used precious time and negotiations as an opportunity to prolong the war.
Analysts believe that any escalation by Putin will lead to exactly that result. The paradox is that the defeat of Russia is not in China's interest, but at the same time, China also does not need a strong, aggressive Russia.
The stability of the Russian regime, the stability of Russia as a whole, is not interested in processes starting in Russia that get out of control. Therefore, it appears likely to me that as soon as this geopolitical conflict begins to take on forms that, from China's strategic point of view, may become difficult to manage or control, China will certainly become significantly more active. In their confidential and private, behind-the-scenes diplomatic discussions with Russia, they will take advantage of every possible opportunity to try to get Russia to eventually agree to finally sit down at the formal negotiating table.
Putin is raising the stakes again. Europe is preparing for the worst after Ukraine, the Baltics. There is talk in Europe about a new threat. The Kremlin is changing the rules of the game. Something alarming is happening at NATO's borders. The border is closed, and the Kremlin is preparing for a major escalation. All the details are coming up in the report.
Russia is lowering the Iron Curtain and cutting all ties with its neighboring countries. Thus, starting July 1st, official Moscow is suspending traffic through some railway border checkpoints with Finland, Estonia, and Latvia. This is stated in an official order from the Russian government published the day before. To temporarily suspend, starting July 1st, 2026, the movement of people, vehicles, goods and cargo through railway border checkpoints. Across the state border of the Russian Federation at certain sections of the state border of the Russian Federation, according to the list provided in the appendix. The Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs is to notify the Republic of Finland, the Republic of Estonia, and the Republic of Latvia of the decision taken. Many Western analysts saw this as Russia preparing for military provocations in the Baltic countries. Or even worse, for a military invasion of Estonia, Latvia, or Finland.
Putin has completely, so to speak, lost his mind, and in principle there are already grounds to say so. And he simply does not understand the consequences of what he is doing, the political consequences of his actions. That's how he feels, that's what makes him comfortable, and so let it be.
This version is also actively promoted by Kremlin propaganda. It tirelessly tries to frighten the West with the possibility of an invasion.
The Russian dictator, I am sure of this, sees a window of opportunity to put pressure on the European Union, to put pressure on European countries, and first and foremost the Baltic countries.
However, apart from intimidating its neighbors, the Kremlin is simply incapable of anything more. Analysts are convinced that once again Putin is putting on a brave face in a losing game. Russia has neither the strength nor the resources to open a second front, let alone achieve any significant success there. As a result, the bunker dweller has once again started to play his usual game, his card of insanity. As if to say, be afraid of me and stay away, because I can do whatever I want.
Maybe this is a kind of strategy, applying pressure by demonstrating his own madness. So to speak, it takes 10 people to hold me back. You know, that kind of thing. An Indonesian amok, so to speak, this kind of demonstrative madness when, let's say, someone goes insane, grabs a knife and attacks everyone around. Not just enemies, that's crucial, but literally anyone who happens to be nearby.
In reality, Putin himself is scared out of his wits, trembling with fear. It was Finland that made the entire Russian leadership, headed by the bunker dweller, so anxious. It is against Finland that Russia has imposed the greatest number of restrictions. In particular, 5 were shut down at once, railway checkpoints between the two countries. And all this happened because on the very same day that Putin closed the borders, Finland, which recently joined NATO, changed its law regarding the storage of nuclear weapons. In effect, this cancels the existing ban on such operations and allows the transport, transfer, supply and storage of nuclear weapons on the country's territory if it is necessary for national defense. And judging by the actions and statements of the Kremlin, it is indeed necessary, and all of this is done demonstratively, right under the nose of the bunker dweller, just about 200 kilometers from St. Petersburg. As a result, Putin simply couldn't help but respond and hastily came up with the idea to suspend railway traffic.
In short, this is quite a specific outcome. Let me repeat, for now it is mostly symbolic rather than real. It will have some impact. But it is quite telling. Well, obviously the Russians will once again claim that all of this was planned in advance.
In any case, is it a bluff or not? The Kremlin is indeed preparing for provocations at the border and in neighboring countries, Finland, Estonia and Latvia, and along with them Lithuania and Poland. In any case, we must prepare for the worst. Analysts assure us of this. After all, you can expect anything from the bunker dweller.
A powerful blow to Putin's plans. Ukraine is receiving innovative defensive weapons. A new era of air defense is beginning. Zelensky is preparing an unpleasant surprise for the Kremlin. Ukraine is urgently strengthening its skies. Putin is losing his main advantage. The West is providing maximum support. All the details are in the report. A new era of Ukraine's defense has begun. While the aggressor tries to exhaust our resources, Kyiv is betting on a technological breakthrough. Gripen fighter jets, invisible air defense systems, and the latest interceptor drones. The skies over Ukraine are becoming impenetrable.
For Ukraine, this is precisely a period of innovative solutions, which has allowed it to compensate for the main advantages through the latest developments. The army and the occupying countries had superiority in personnel and heavy armored vehicles. All of this has been nullified.
The main news. Ukraine has officially closed the deal for Swedish Gripen fighter jets. These are fourth-generation aircraft, designed to operate in the most challenging conditions. And already, 16 of them will soon be in Ukraine.
The first planes will be delivered to the armed forces of Ukraine as early as the beginning of next year. As President Volodymyr Zelensky noted, it is important that along with the aircraft, a package of appropriate equipment, technical assistance and support will also be provided.
But to what extent will these fighter jets be able to turn the tide of the war at the front?
The Gripen is the best value for money. It's the best option for Ukraine's defense forces and air defense systems. The Gripen can even use highways as runways. This is an opportunity to seriously counter the Russian lineup, their aerospace forces of the Russian Federation. This can seriously... For Ukraine's defense, using the Gripen both as an element of an active air defense system and accordingly for striking legitimate military targets.
President Zelensky calls the new stage of cooperation between Sweden and Ukraine historic. After all, it's not just about the fighter jets.
The parties discussed bilateral cooperation in detail, including preparations for the drone deal and work on anti-ballistic measures.
Meanwhile, air defense is also being systematically strengthened. President Zelensky has seriously piqued interest. There are already new agreements with the US and European partners to strengthen our skies, but the details have not yet been disclosed.
It should be noted that all issues of military technical cooperation should be discussed behind closed doors, not on television screens. There is a statement directly from the President of the United States, Trump. He said that the possibility of transferring to the Ukrainian side is being considered. Facilities for the production of interceptor missiles for the Patriot surface-to-air missile system. These are significant opportunities for the Ukrainian side, but...
Defense is not only about large systems, but also about the technologies of the future. Introducing the new interceptor drone Syrskyi and its main feature, automatic target acquisition and a dirt-cheap price compared to an expensive missile.
Shaheeds will no longer get through. A new interceptor drone, Syrskyi, has been unveiled in Ukraine, designed specifically to counter Russian drones. It can reach speeds of up to 340 kilometers per hour, ascend to an altitude of up to 6 kilometers, and stay airborne for up to 20 minutes. With the help of artificial intelligence, the drone automatically detects and destroys aerial targets.
The United Kingdom is also adding weight. A new support package worth nearly 300 million euros. This is not just money, it's a concrete tool for those very deep strikes that are currently burning up Russian logistics. Previously, London announced 150,000 drones and more than 350 missiles at Russia's expense.
The deliveries will be distributed in stages until the end of the current year, with a priority on strengthening aerial surveillance and protecting Ukraine's critical infrastructure.
Denmark has also joined the technological race. The country announced a powerful 30th aid package worth $690 million. And here is a crucial point. The Danes are not just handing over old stockpiles, they are investing this money directly into Ukrainian defense factories.
Accordingly, this means job creation, taxes for the budget, but most importantly, collaboration, that is, the exchange of technologies. And this makes it possible to scale up production. Investment, in turn, means speed of complex industrial manufacturing and production processes, the significant reduction of operational costs, and accordingly, the strategic opportunity to use the defense industry as a powerful driving locomotive and catalyst for the growth of the entire Ukrainian economy.
Ukraine is changing the concept of war. It is moving from defense to technological dominance. While the enemy grows poorer and loses resources, the skies over Ukraine are becoming a zone where enemy presence means a guaranteed end. A new era of air defense has begun, and it will be fatal for the aggressor.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism, and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
Putin has ordered preparations for a new assault on the capital of Ukraine. The Kremlin once again wants to take Kyiv in 3 days. Syrskyi has revealed the dangerous plan of the bunker dweller. From which territory could the new offensive come, how soon could it happen, and what role does Lukashenko play in this? We will tell you all about this in our report. Russia is preparing a new offensive on Kyiv. This was stated by the commander-in-chief of the armed forces of Ukraine, Oleksandr Syrskyi. According to him, the Russian General Staff received an order from Vladimir Putin to develop new plans to capture Kyiv. The most likely scenario is an offensive on the Chernihiv region.
We know that Putin tasked the Russian General Staff with calculating various options for an offensive operation, including from the territory of Belarus, with the goal of capturing Kyiv, with the aim of seizing other territories as well. And the Russian General Staff has calculated several possible courses of action. The most likely scenario is confirmed by several pieces of evidence. Offensive actions in the north are possible.
According to the assessment of the Ukrainian command, this could involve an attempt to intensify hostilities from the territory of the Bryansk region. And
we must be prepared in advance for such threats, especially since Russia is planning a general mobilization after the elections. This will allow it to accumulate certain resources, which it will use at its own discretion, and possibly, among other things, to implement such a scenario. But if we talk about the group of 14,000 itself, there are risks of a different kind, namely sabotage and raid activities in the border area. Russia has repeatedly tried to carry out sabotage on the border with the Chernihiv region. And it is precisely this group which is concentrated in the Bryansk region that could be directed to carry out sabotage and raid activities similar to what we can see in the Sumy or Kharkiv regions. That is, attempts to seize individual villages and settlements along the border, which are literally right on the border, sometimes even forming agglomerations with Russian villages, or are located just 200 to 300 meters away, not very far. So this is essentially a kind of border gray zone. Engaging in this type of military activity is indeed exceptionally hazardous and fraught with danger. It could be deliberately carried out by the Russian side in a calculated attempt to distract our attention, create the false illusion of imminent threats emerging from the Chernihiv region, and of course to forcefully pin down and immobilize our defensive troops within the immediate border area of the Chernihiv region.
The commander-in-chief noted that the main goal of such a move could be to expand the front line, which is something Putin really wants.
Well, the guys are getting shelled there every day, every single day. We will go where we need to go.
In that case, the Ukrainian army will have to redeploy additional forces to the northern direction, strengthening the defense of the Chernihiv region. But according to experts, we will know about an attack in advance.
To carry out sabotage activities aimed at distracting attention, tying down forces and resources, as well as simulating threats, including generating various types of panic and psychological operations. Victorious ones in their own information space and panic-inducing ones here in Ukraine. That is precisely why in the near future they may need the Chernihiv region to carry out such localized operations. As soon as there is a real threat of a more serious invasion of the Chernihiv region, we will of course know about it, since Russia would need to concentrate its forces in the Bryansk region for this. About 60,000 personnel. Such a force, a strike force, but to do this unnoticed, to carry it out unnoticed, is simply impossible. All the more so, all of this is necessary, and it also requires the appropriate amount of time.
At the same time, Syrskyi separately commented on the likelihood of a new offensive through the territory of Belarus. According to him, at present, the Ukrainian side does not observe any signs of the formation of a strike group necessary to carry out such an operation. However, this option is not completely ruled out, so the defense forces continue to closely monitor the situation. Even the repeaters. Belarus has turned them on again, but an attack on Kyiv from the territory of Belarus would require Minsk's consent, which has not been given so far.
Lukashenko understands perfectly well that if he supports Putin in this war with his own army, then, first of all, his army will be depleted very quickly. There are only 14,500 ground troops there, by the way. Given the daily losses of Russian troops, 1,300 to 1,400 people, I think anyone with even basic math skills can calculate how long the Belarusian army would last. And Lukashenko, having at least basic math skills himself, he fully understands what his army would be in real combat operations on the territory of Ukraine. But that's not even what scares him the most. What worries him more is how Ukraine might respond on Belarusian territory, where of course the air defense system is much weaker than that of the Russian Federation, and Belarus itself is like an open book for Ukrainian drones.
In addition, Syrskyi also spoke about the current situation at the front. According to him, recently the intensity of Russian offensive actions has decreased by about 30%. He named successful strikes on Russian logistics, which complicate the supply of Russian army units, as one of the reasons. Also, according to the commander-in-chief, Ukrainian units continue active operations in several sectors of the front, and the initiative in some combat engagements remains with the Ukrainian defense forces.
The number of main directions where the enemy is conducting active offensive operations has also decreased. If previously there were 13 directions, now we can speak of 7 directions. And even among these 7, we can single out 4 main directions, meaning the enemy's activity has decreased significantly.
Thus, the Ukrainian command is warning about a possible intensification of Russian forces in the northern direction. At the same time, Ukrainian soldiers continue to prepare for any development of the situation and are aware of all the Kremlin's plans and every move of the Russian military. It's a catastrophe. Russian soldiers survive only a matter of minutes on the front line. Putin's army is being wiped out. The contract is a one-way ticket. Even payouts of tens of thousands of dollars don't help. There is mass panic and refusal to fight in the Russian army. The soldiers revealed a terrible truth, why Putin's army and Russia itself are rapidly sinking to the bottom. All the details are in the report. It seems that the so-called great and mighty Russian army is only powerful in words. It's slowly deflating. With each passing day, the occupiers are showing more and more signs of complete weakness, of spirit. Even the propagandists are whining on TV screens. On air, there is more and more talk about a ceasefire and the need to negotiate with Ukraine.
In order to successfully accomplish the strategic objectives of our ongoing military operations, we might find ourselves forced to accept a significantly less honorable, or as we often say, even a disgraceful, but nevertheless a necessary ceasefire that promises us the continued preservation and long-term security of the territorial gains we have made during the special military operation. However, this will ultimately require us to accept the continued existence of Ukraine in its current form as it unfortunately exists now.
As CNN reports, there are fewer and fewer people in Russia willing to fight. Even payments of tens of thousands of dollars are not helping. To attract new contract soldiers, Russia is promising up to $80,000 in signing bonuses, debt forgiveness, and other perks. Service advertisements are being shown on television, on social media, and even on billboards. But still, there are almost no people willing to go to war.
Obviously, he has avoided expanding mobilization. Obviously, not without reason. There must be some very serious reasons for this, ranging from the possibility of social unrest to the blow to the economy that such an approach to mobilization would clearly cause.
According to CNN, in the first quarter of this year, recruitment of contract soldiers fell by 20% compared to last year. At the same time, the losses have not gone anywhere, in fact, quite the opposite. According to Western intelligence estimates, Russia is losing tens of thousands of soldiers at the front every month. To make up for the shortage, prisoners have already been sent to war, North Korean soldiers have been brought in, and migrants have been actively recruited.
There really are quite a few problems piling up in Putin's army. The situation is heating up. For example, there's the One-Eyed Assault Squad, which was formed in the 1452nd Motorized Rifle Regiment of the Russian Armed Forces.
We're all cripples. Some are disabled, some are on disability. Some have a red fitness category. They just gathered us all together and assigned us here. And now we're waiting to be sent on assaults on strong points.
Just listen to what they're saying. I
lost an eye. Now I have an implant. My fitness category is red, confirmed with a red stamp. They're sending me on an assault.
2 months ago, I had surgery, left-sided mastoiditis to remove pus. The pus started getting into my brain. After this operation, my left eye was blinded. My right eye is also losing vision. When I was in the assault unit under the command of Captain Andrei Sergeyevich Golovachev, he eventually just handed me over for another assignment. I wasn't given any medical board evaluation, nothing. My left eye can't see and my right eye is going blind. As he said, go there and die. You all have to die.
Or do you remember the story of the Russian SWO soldier Alexander Lunin? This very Lunin harshly criticized the recruitment of students for the war, calling officials cannibals and traitors to the people, and accused commanders of torturing their own soldiers.
At this very moment, dozens, then hundreds, and even thousands of our brave soldiers are trapped deep inside dark dungeons, being punished by their own commanders. They sit there, they rot, and they are subjected to horrific torture and constant physical abuse by the so-called Gestapo. All of this simply for refusing to carry out incredibly stupid and suicidal orders. These were essentially suicidal orders, given simply for their firm refusal to surrender and relinquish their financial resources. And in the end, they are completely erased from existence, forced to vanish without a single trace.
And he declared that if the Russian dictator Putin does not agree to a direct conversation, then the army will turn its weapons against the Kremlin.
If I do not come to the Kremlin in the near future, and do not speak live on air next to you, the army will turn its weapons against the Kremlin.
Lunin even recorded a video and stated that he was indeed invited to Moscow.
Right now I'm looking for a car and we're heading out.
But instead of a Putin audience and a live broadcast, this hapless soldier Lunin was convicted for displaying Nazi symbols. Under this article, Lunin faces either a fine of 1,000 to 2,000 rubles or administrative arrest for up to 15 days or compulsory community service for up to 100 hours. According to the New York Post, on the front lines, Russian soldiers live on average 20 to 35 minutes. The publication Sosilka on ZVN Korov writes that the Russian army is currently losing about 30,000 people per month. At the same time, from signing the contract to death, it often takes no more than 3 weeks.
It is obvious that the Russian regime still wants to squeeze out the so-called voluntary enlistment to the very end, without further expanding the scope of the general mobilization, which has not been officially or formally terminated in Russia, but nevertheless, right now they are directing their primary efforts and attention mainly toward the recruitment of contract soldiers through significant financial incentives.
And now, a bit more math. The Ukrainian Ministry of Defense has stated that our armed forces will receive 100,000 hryvnias for a captured occupier and 15,000 for a neutralized one. If several servicemen capture an enemy, the sum of 100,000 is distributed among them proportionally. Be that as it may, one thing is clear. The bunker-bound victory maniac is driving Russia toward total collapse. And this ship is rapidly sinking.
Since they are truly squandering their human resources so irrationally, sooner or later they are bound to run out. That is, it's obvious that Putin believed they would achieve all their goals in just a few years, so there would be no need to worry about mobilization. But now the situation is changing somewhat, and this will create rather serious problems for them in the future. Simply because, in the conditions of a new technological war, they are running out of people faster than they can conscript them by any means. Most likely, they will have to either consider ending the war or expanding mobilization.
That's all for now. Watch more hot news in the next episode.